Morning, Shane.
Good morning, Cass. All right, welcome to the live stream of the Shift Lanes 13th Avenue Bikeway. We are streaming live for Coffee Outside this morning. We've got our coffee here, thanks to Mokes. We are at 13th and High, and Cass and I are excited to be here and welcome anyone who wants to come by and say hello and answer questions about the 13th Avenue Bikeway. You can see it behind me here. I'm facing west, and Pearl and Cass.
And I'm facing east towards High. And I'm sure we're going to see some folks roll by this morning. And we might say hello. We've got some special guests coming. And we're just going to enjoy our coffee with you all.
Great. All right. And since we're streaming live, we are on Facebook and YouTube. Leave your comments with questions, and we're happy to just hang out here and have a fun little conversation about the Bikeway and its history and how it came about. Make some fixes here to my audio. Cass, can you hear okay? Is there...
I actually am getting an echo between you and the broadcast.
Yeah, I wonder how we might fix that. There we go. There's our first biker going by this morning.
All right. And we see just behind me folks stopping at Hyde Street, waiting for their light and moving on. It's going to be a great route, or it is a great route for commuting to campus, students and staff. So just getting it. Thanks, Mike. This is Mike, the owner of Moke's. Come on in, Mike. He's coming to bring me a special drink. So Moke's is fantastic. It's a new cafe that just opened on the corner of High and 13th, and they've got great drinks and delicious food. So stop on by and join us.
I see we got our first comment from Anna. Says hello from Las Vegas and is coming to Eugene soon. Well, here we've got our first runner in the Bikeway. I think, Tracktown USA, that's something we see is a lot of different users on the Bikeway, not just people on bikes, but scooters and skateboards and people running. I know the 13th Amazon, or the Amazon active transportation corridor has also seen a lot of runners and other users.
Yeah, and it's been great this week seeing families out here, adults with their kids, and in some cases, right, Shane, kids just going by themselves.
Yep, yeah, we were out here for a critical mass ride this weekend, and I sent my kiddos off to ride the corridor on their own, and it was really great to feel like I could just let them go and not worry, as long as they followed the traffic lights. It was totally safe for them to ride.
Yeah.
Easier streets, so it was great.
So fantastic. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, looks like Aaron might be here. I'm going to see about bringing him in.
Let's get Aaron in here. Hold on.
Oh, hold on. You're not on quite yet, Aaron. There we go.
Hey, can you hear
me?
me? Broadcasting from home today.
Hey, Aaron.
Yeah,
I'm staying warm. I got to do a little stuff at home, so.
Yeah. Well, you probably spent a lot of time out here, so it's probably okay not being out here right now, right?
Yeah, I definitely put my time in the summer.
Why don't you tell us what you did for the 13th project?
Well, I was the head inspector, and so I basically worked with Wildish, and who was the general contractor on the project, who was really great to work with the whole time. You guys hear me still? Oh, it looks like your mics are muted anyway. So okay.
Yeah,
so Yeah, so I was out there every day with Wildish, basically just making sure that they were building everything to our specifications and how our plans were, and we have a lot of specific construction techniques and whatnot that we're doing with this project is pretty unique, and so we kind of had to really not handhold, but be there for support to answer any questions about the design and whatnot. So,
What were some of the unique things that you had to keep an eye on that were different on this project?
well, for me, this was my first large project, and I think as far as just keeping track of, since it was a federal project, everything has to be done to the finest T as far as every little quantity that we put in and every specification that we're building to has to be documented. Basically, just getting everything down on paper and taking lots of pictures was the biggest thing. So we have a lot of construction photos. If you ever want to share those with anyone, we also did something kind of cool. We picked Brian Root, who's the project manager, picked like 5 locations along the corridor that we did before pictures, looking basically from the middle of the street, and then we did a during construction photo and then an after. So we'll have a before, during construction, and after photo of like 5 different spots along the corridor, which would be pretty cool. So at some point we'd like to share those. I haven't taken the after photos yet, but that's gonna be probably one of my tasks this week when I get out there. So.
Yeah, well, we're certainly taking plenty of pictures in the general, people riding the corridor and things. Probably not as technical as some of the construction photos you'll take, but yeah, it'll definitely be good. I think we'll probably have to put together a little photo book of the history of how it all came together and got built and is being used.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, anything else? Yeah, I mean, there was just so much going on. I think the big component was, as on the bike ride the other day, Reid talked about how big the traffic signal component was. And so just for me, I hadn't been in a project that had that much traffic signal ever components. And so for me, it was just a learning experience of how all these components go together and how much, well, for one thing, like how much cable and wiring is going into these signals is amazing. Like the thousands and thousands of feet of wiring that we use to wire, people think you just look at these signals and you're like, oh, they just all work. But then you realize how much
behind
work
it.
and time. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So
Lance,
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, along the corridor, there were, how many signals did we replace?
As far as single signals or like as far as intersections?
I guess intersections.
Intersections, I believe we had, I think it was 7 or 8 intersections that we fully rebuilt, and I think it might even be 9. I haven't looked at the signal plans for a little bit, but yeah, it's up there. And then at each of those ones, we're rebuilding either the whole intersection, as in putting in new all new mast arms and poles and all that stuff, and then adding all the bike components to it. And yeah, it's just a lot of stuff to order and a lot of stuff to install. So
installed, yeah, but pretty impressive. I think that how quickly it got done. I think probably because there was a lot less traffic to deal with and a real focus on getting the project done pretty quickly. It seemed like the construction crew was moving it on a pretty good timeline.
Yeah, they were, and it was nice. We started, I believe our start date was April 13th, and that was right at the height of COVID lockdown, and it was actually perfect timing because we just had no one out there. There was no traffic. They were able to just really zoom through and do a good job. Just having little complications as far as just the amount of people out there, and we have to deal with a lot of that foot traffic and car traffic, and it just safety wise it was great for the project. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and Aaron, you were mentioning Reid Dunbar, and Reid, just for the audience, Reid is the planner who worked on this project, and he worked with Aaron to do a design ride last Friday, explaining a bit about the Bikeway, and Reid Dunbar is going to be on today as well.
Yeah, he definitely knows way more about the project than I do. I'm just out there. I was kind of the eyes and ears of the city during the whole project, which was pretty cool to be that kind of boots on the ground after the planning and transportation has done all the work to get this all going the last probably almost close to 7-8 years at least that we've been planning and designing, and just all the components. It's really cool to see it all come together, and actually, like, I was there to witness it all go in, so it was cool.
Hey, Aaron. Oh, we've some comments coming through.
Oh, Dave.
And Aaron, what would you say was something that was unique on this project for your team?
You help me with some Viking questions because I'm super good.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think just the way that we built the curb, I think was pretty unique. We kind of as far as design wise, it's we're kind of taking what we learned on Amazon and then applying that to this next project, and I think it's pretty cool because I think we're basically just getting lessons learned from each project that we do. So we learned a lot of lessons. I had nothing to do with the Amazon project, but Brian, who's the project manager, they learned a lot of lessons learned on that one, and kind of constructability wise. And then we applied it to this project, and we learned some stuff on this project that's going to be instrumental going forward. So I think just the lessons learned and just seeing it all like come together was pretty cool. And what we can do better, and what we did well on this is going to be just great going forward. So
yeah, that East Amazon project, for those who don't know, was Eugene's first protected bikeway. We've had a two-way bikeway on Alder for many years, but the East Amazon protected bikeway was completed back in 2018, and but doesn't have as many signals as this one. This one is definitely a lot more complicated and more of the urban environment, whereas the other one was along a parkway, and that's a really great one. Part of the Amazon to river connection that we're hoping to get done, and that project was really wonderful. And I think the diagonal crossing, for folks who've gotten to ride that, definitely some good learning for the city. And then to see that applied here is great.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's right now. That's kind of all I can think about with the project. But yeah, it was cool to work on, and it was kind of like, I think it ended up being about 5 months roughly construction time from beginning to end. But in 5 months, it's pretty amazing what we can accomplish, and what everything that we're doing. Just I guess one thing that I wasn't aware of was like the signal poles that we put in, the main mast arms. Those things, there's a couple of them there's one that's like 18 feet deep. So yeah, a lot of people don't realize how deep our signal poles are that are at the corner. So they're made to take, you can hit them with a lot of stuff, and they're not going to go down.
Yeah.
So
they're not just bolted. They're not just bolted to the ground.
They're not just bolted right to the ground. So yeah, the stuff you learn, when you're out there is it's pretty cool. So
All right. I'm gonna get some of our other guests set up here.
Yeah. Thanks for
Great.
having me
Yeah,
on.
and yeah, thanks, Aaron, for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for putting this on.
All right, we'll see you soon. All right, great. Well, again, we are live here on the 13th Avenue Protected Bikeway, part of the Shift Lanes celebration for the opening. We've been doing some events and rides since Friday, and those will continue on through this Friday, and including another couple live stream events. We're going to be doing a drop by the shop for with Peace Health Rides. You can call with any of your bike questions, mechanical or otherwise. Just talk to the shop folks at Peace Health Rides. Right now we're getting things set up to have another guest on here at our live stream event. Excuse the background noise. We're very excited. It's been a fun morning. We've been seeing a lot of different folks coming through on bikes, running by, and hold on just a sec here. All right. And so now I'm excited to bring our next guest on. We have Mark Schlossberg from University of Oregon joining us.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, Mark. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Mark Schlossberg, as you can maybe see on the screen. I'm a professor at the U of O. I teach city and regional planning, and a big emphasis on sustainability in cities, and a big emphasis, small emphasis, I don't know, some emphasis within there on transportation, particularly how to redesign cities so that more people can walk, bike, take transit more of the time. That's what I do every day.
Awesome.
It's fun.
And how are you connected to this project? Tell me a little bit of the history.
Sure. Deeply involved in this project, actually. So I'm not sure how much has been shared, so I'll give a little brief thing and we can explore it if you want. But the genesis of the project came from a group of students that are part of the Live Move student group, and I'm the faculty advisor to this student group, but it's generally a fairly autonomous group. I provide a little mentorship, make sure that they don't do anything illegal or anything like that with the money that they have to spend. And anyway, in 2012, when the new apartment complex downtown, the Capstone Apartments, or now called 13th and Olive, was being moving forward to be built, this group of students was wondering how the new residence, which was going to be around 1,200 students, was the target at that time. This group of U of O students that were part of Live Move were curious, how are those students that are going to live downtown, how are they going to get to and from campus? And it's about a mile from campus, which is it's walkable, but a little bit far for that, for sort of quick walking. It's transit accessible, but kind of not really. Like a mile is an awkward amount of space in terms of timing things. So they figured a good number of students would bike. But there was only a one-way bikeway from downtown to campus, and there was not a clear direct path to get back to downtown. So the students asked some people in the city staff what their plans were. This new student complex was going to be built, and so the Live Move students asked city staff, "Hey, is there any plans around doing something around the transportation connection between the apartments and the campus?" And staff was like, "We really want to get this housing done. We can't really think about other things. We don't want to jeopardize bringing housing downtown. It's been a long-term goal, so we're not really thinking about that." So the students said, "Okay." So then the students went and talked to the university administration and said, "Hey, there's going to be 1,200 students living a mile from campus, and there's no safe, direct way for them to get back from campus. Do you have a thought? Are you thinking about how our students are going to return home safely after they've been on campus?" And the campus administration was like, "Well, that's off the university campus. We don't really think about that too much. It's not really our domain. So no, we're not really thinking about that at all." And so this group of students, not satisfied with either of those answers, and wasn't in their nature just to chain themselves to Johnson Hall, demand someone else do something. Instead, they took it upon themselves to look at the corridor between campus and downtown to see if there was a better way to make that connection happen. So they actually spent a whole year putting into practice some things that they had learned in the classroom, other things that they wanted to learn, and they studied the corridor. They studied transportation behavior by drivers, by cyclists, by pedestrians. They looked at parking, they looked at transit, they looked at all of it, and they produced a comprehensive report I'm happy to go into, and anything. Anyway, one thing led to another, and here we are, basically.
Yeah, it was really exciting to see that process move along, where the students, had this idea and really did a lot of the steps that the city would do when it's looking at a project, and sort of the feasibility around it, as far as going out and doing the parking surveys and looking at the overall sort of impact that it might have. And it seemed like they did a really amazing job of doing even some design charrettes and some community meetings to sort of figure out what their proposal and their design ideas would be, so that they created this really great package that they could present to the city and say, here's what we learned, take it where we can actually implement this. And it was just really an inspiring thing to see.
Yeah, so what they did at the end of this year of their research is they created a whole beautiful report, like very visually accessible. It's available online still, you can find it. And then at the end of that academic year, again, they weren't getting paid, they weren't getting academic credits. Students were just doing it on their own time. They hosted a public forum to present the results of their research and some of their design ideas, redesign ideas for 13th, back in the day when we could gather in person. And so they had a really big event on campus. It was about 120 people showed up, both from campus and also from the larger community. So people from the city staff, but also general public that was interested in hearing about their ideas. And so it was like lots of posters around a room, so a lot of mingling and back and forth, and really interactive and engaging to explore the research and the design ideas. And actually the core design idea that the students came up with was to create a protected two-way bike lane on the north side of 13th Street, which is what you see behind me, built. And there was nothing like this in Eugene. There's very few examples of this anywhere in the United States. So it was an evidence-based design, but also really pushing the boundaries of what was being built in the U.S. And to me, this is one of the brilliant spots for students, right? So students can occupy this really sweet spot in our community. They're being trained to know the latest and greatest knowledge that's around the world, and they're able to take that and find a sweet spot between sort of idealism, unrealistic idealism, let's say, and boring realism, right? And they can find a sweet spot between that and push the rest of us and put things out there into the public domain to spur a conversation in a way that's a little bit less politically like the usual. It's not battled as much. Thankfully, the general public doesn't yell at students. It might be the last great place in our society where people don't get yelled at just for putting an idea out there. And so really what happened is these community conversations that the students spurred with their research and with that first public forum really led to thoughtful conversations about what this corridor could be, not just for people on bike, but also for people driving, people in transit, and really for the businesses and people living along this corridor, and how to better connect the downtown and the university in a way that they haven't really been connected in the 135 years or whatever it's been since the university's been here. So it was a very comprehensive look, and it's like this unique spot where the students put those ideas out there in a way that allowed a very diverse set of community members to engage in a very thoughtful understanding of how to rethink what 13th could be.
Right. Yeah. And I think they continue to do that through, other projects that they're doing around rethinking, how we use our public space, and I think that's really great. I wanted to highlight, I brought up on the screen here, the Live Move website, and talking about their past projects, and just highlight the conceptual designs that they did. And though we didn't get as much green and yellow down, the general design is the two-way bikeway with the barrier there, and green dash lines at the intersections. And I don't think that bike box made it onto Pearl, but there's definitely, I think the number of bike signals and the bike signals that allow that left and right turn movement during the red is one of the reasons that we didn't need to have the bike boxes. But this is where you can download the full report and really see how much of what they did came back into the actual design. So that was really great to see. To highlight that.
If I could add just a couple other things. One more shout out to these students. So this was 2012, 2013. So these students did this work knowing that if something moved forward, it was not going to be for them. It was going to be for the larger community for sure, but also in terms of the student body, for the future students that were going to be at the U of O. And I just think that that's an incredible use of just who they were, and the use of their time and their effort, that they were willing to put all this time and effort into helping create something that would make the community better, even though most of them likely were not going to be beneficiaries of it. They graduated and they've moved on and they've moved away and they have jobs and lives and families and all that kind of thing. So it's a special shout out to those students, and students that continue to be part of the Live Move group, that are really invested in not only their own learning, but trying to help make the Eugene Springfield area better with its transportation system. And then the other shout out that I'd like to give, and I don't know if they'll be here this week, that is to Susan and John Miner, who happened to come to that first student presentation at the end of that academic year, and were really impressed with what the students came up on 13th. And they, about a month later, wrote to the mayor offering to help privately contribute some money to help make the students' vision a reality. So I don't know if they're going to be here later, but there's articles about them. Their son, David, was killed in a bike car crash at 13th and Willamette. Some of you may have seen they're still there, that they still take care of. And they really saw the 13th Avenue corridor here, this redesign, as a way, in some ways, to honor David, but more importantly, to create an infrastructure between downtown and the campus that would prevent similar tragedies happening to other individuals and their families. And so I really do believe that it was their outreach to the mayor that actually was equally key to this whole process. I think after the students put their ideas out in the public domain, I think there was some interest from the city, and I'm treading carefully here because I know the city is hosting this webcast here. I think there was some interest, but there wasn't really the authority or the energy to go for it, to sort of figure out how to transition what the students had put out there and make it a reality. And I think when Susan and John Miner reached out offering to donate private money to help make some of this happen, that really got the attention in a different way. And it was at that point that I think staff were directed to take this a little bit more seriously and see if the students' design ideas really would be feasible. And it was from that point forward then sort of a whole city process of reaching out to the community and doing some more due diligence on design, and ultimately lots of time to design and find the money to do it. But I did want to acknowledge Susan and John Miner's role in this, in addition to the students' role of just giving back to this larger community that they had the temporary opportunity to live in and thrive in.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's really important, and I think we'll highlight some of those pieces around the memorial that we might. Yeah, that's better. Thank you. That we might that we're going to be installing later, and I think having a special little webcast and story about that will be important once we know a little bit more um, about what's going to happen. So I do want to. I have another special guest I want to bring on. So thank you so much. We're gonna come back. Whoops, hold on one second here. We're gonna come back to a little bit of the history piece that Mark talked about. I want to highlight a little bit of the even beyond before Live Move, some of the history of sort of the idea and the dream. And I think it's really great to hear a little bit about how the students really took that dream and said, okay, it's time for this dream to happen. Like, let's really do this. And just the work that they put in was really inspiring. And I so appreciate you sort of being there as a foundation for them to keep that work moving ahead. I think it's such an important, this is a project that is really about connecting the university to the city in a new and different way. And I think that having students lead that and kick it off was a really important part of what made the project happen, along with the miners and just, I think the coalition of people involved to make it happen was really great. So thanks for being a part of that.
Great. Thanks for having me. And thanks for building it. It's awesome. Very good. All right.
All right. Thanks, Mark. All right. So we're going to take a little break here. I'm going to pull that off and just ask that maybe Cass can find a good spot that isn't as sunny, and we'll bring on a guest that we have calling in. All right. Brian, thanks for joining us. We are out here on 13th, and you look like you're warm and cozy in your office. I'll let you do a little introduction.
Everybody, I'm Brian Root, civil engineer at the City of Eugene, and the project manager who works side by side with Reid and Shane on the 13th Avenue design and kind of implementation. So we watched it. I got it from them in the planning phase and took it to design and construction. So it's been a lot of fun.
So we just had Aaron on a little bit ago that talked about, in construction and sort of the interesting pieces that happened as part of construction. We had Mark Schlossberg, who was here talking a little bit about the history of Live Move and the student piece. But you really brought this from the planning into the design and implementation phase, as well as the project as it was being built. When it was going through that design phase and taking sort of that vision that the students brought and taking, projects that we'd worked on before with East Amazon, what were some of the interesting challenges and sort of bringing this into fruition, interesting and exciting pieces and challenges that you found?
Sure. So I think that kind of first challenge that we noticed separate from the Amazon Active project was we've got roads coming from all directions, alleys, driveways everywhere. So, how do we do our best to eliminate any of those conflict zones at driveways and alleys and pedestrians? So that was kind of the first challenge. How do we make this a safe facility that people can use and it's efficient for everybody in the city? So that's probably the first one. The other thing being part of it is, right down there at Willamette, we have our largest and most used fire station 1. And so they like to use 13th on their eastbound to get into different neighborhoods. And it was, how do we accommodate the fire station so that they can get to where they need to safely and help, the public, but also, still have as much vehicle traffic out there for good capacity, good flow. And that's kind of why you see that low profile curb with nothing on top of it. Down on Amazon Active, we had those tubular markers, the kind of vertical, to give you more of a visual. We didn't do that on 13th because we anticipate that if we have enough traffic, in our high peak times, lunch, on your way to work, on your way home, that fire truck might actually need to straddle that concrete separator. So that was another kind of a fun task working with the fire station to develop that. Yeah, I think that was kind of the big one. All the signalized intersections, we wanted to upgrade all of those to kind of meet current standards, and have bike signals and the cameras, and it was a really big team effort. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there was a lot that went into it, not just the concrete for the protected bikeway,
Mhm.
but every intersection had signal changes and curb ramps, and
Oh,
got
yeah.
a lot of new design pieces to add in there.
Mhm.
Um, this is our first major section with so many bike signals. How many bike signals do you think we have on this whole corridor?
So there's 12 intersections, I believe, and 10 of them are signalized. So yeah, all the way from Charlton to Alder, cameras in both directions, east-west, and then a handful of the intersections have them north-south, depending on, if it's a north one way or a south one way, like Oak, High, Pearl. So a lot of those have cameras as well. Um, Sections like Willamette Street, we kept with the traditional kind of traffic loops for the bikes, just because of the kind of way the signal timing works. It's just a different corridor there at that intersection. It's you got two-way on Willamette there, where Pearl, High, Oak, those are all one-way north or south. So just a little bit different challenge, but working with our traffic operations team, they were able to really kind of rise to the challenge and helped out a lot.
Yeah, the signal piece is definitely one of the most interesting parts of this. I think that people love the protected bikeway aspect of feeling that safe separation. But I know one of the things that I mentioned before, that I let my kids ride the corridor this weekend on their own, without me, after we'd ridden it a couple times, and it's because of the signals, because you get to these busy intersections, and no matter where you want to go, when the bike light is green, you can go straight, you can turn,
Mm-hmm.
and just that comfort, right? And that's a big part of why we built this, is to make a comfortable facility that people feel that they can ride on, all different levels of cyclists, and people who don't even identify as cyclists but ride a bike, and
Absolutely.
and so I think that was a great thing to see how we implement that. I know that there's still some fine tuning to do around that, but we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. I think with Reid Dunbar, who we're about to bring on. Any other things you want to highlight about the project, and what was sort of interesting or exciting about it for you?
There's a lot of different kind of techniques from the transportation world that we pulled into it. For example, like with the curb separator that separates the vehicles and the bikes, those extended out past crosswalk, and the intent there was to slow down vehicles when they're making a left or right turn, on or off of 13th. And I went out there and watched it last week and walked a couple intersections, and it seems to be working really well. I'm pretty pleased with that. As somebody like myself who drives quite a bit, it's gonna feel kind of weird at first, but it really increases that ability to make it a safe intersection. Eugene's got that Vision Zero goal, and I think this is a good piece of it. We designed that kind of little additional bullnose bump out that, it's only 2 inches, so if a car were to hit it, it's not going to hurt anything. It's going to be low speeds, of course, but you're going to feel it, and then you're going to realize, okay, I cut that corner a little too tight, and I need to be careful next time. So I think it's kind of an innovative project in the sense that we're trying to rethink or retweak some of the ways that we drive through the city. Instead of driving through the city as fast as possible, let's take our time and be safe about it out there. So that was good to watch. I really like seeing people, cyclists out there just immediately. I watched a gentleman that was on Willamette Street, wanted to turn left onto 13th, and he pulled up and he kind of looked around and noticed the bikeway, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just going to go right there." And so it's, people starting to see it and use it. It's, I was really excited about this project, and it went really smooth, I would say, from an engineering standpoint. And I'm just really great to see it, or happy to see it open.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thanks for coming on. And we, so appreciate the work that you're doing. I know that you are leading on a lot of these active transportation projects, and it's really great to have you working with us to make these happen. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Shane.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. All right, great. Well, we dropped a name a whole lot so far this past 40 minutes talking about the 13th Avenue Bikeway, and I wanted to bring that person on here. Reid Dunbar.
Hey, Shane.
Good morning. You want to give us a little introduction?
Yeah, my name is Reid Dunbar, and I'm a senior transportation.
Hold on. I muted you. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm not muted now.
Yeah, that was all me.
So my name is Reid Dunbar, and I'm a transportation planner with the City of Eugene Transportation Planning Team. And I work mostly on walking and biking projects, so bike lanes, crosswalks, shared use paths, things like that. This was an exciting project because it's our first urban protected bike lane, and it has so many signals along the corridor. This is our first kind of shot at what this could look like in the future, because we do have some more of these planned. There's a 20-year plan called the Transportation System Plan. And in that plan, we're trying to forecast how we get people out of their cars and get them more interested in walking, biking, and taking the bus. And building infrastructure that is all ages and abilities like this protected bike lane is thought to be one of the ways to do that. It's not our only tool in the toolbox. We also have neighborhood greenways, which are all ages and abilities, but often crossing arterial streets can be difficult in that configuration. So this one takes the guesswork out of that, and I have heard some frustration from people that they do have to stop at the red lights at every intersection, and that's part of that built-in safety. What that does is it eliminates conflicts between users. So when the bike lane has a green bike signal, only bikes are moving, and so that will reduce, hopefully eliminate all of the conflict crashes that happen in intersections with turning movements. But we will be able to hopefully smooth that out a little bit so that experience isn't as frustrating as it is now. We have some equipment on back order that is not here yet that allows the signals to talk to each other. And as soon as we get that, we plan on installing it, and that will give us additional capability to help potentially do more of a green wave scenario, although I'm not promising that will ever happen. But we will have the tools to be able to do that and to make it a little bit more comfortable for daily users.
I just want to highlight that as you were talking about that, there was a person on a bike waiting at the red bike light, and cars in the travel lane, and the cars got the green, and they both went, and there was a car that was turning left, and so, you know, if the person on the bike had just waited, they would have got the green. But it is, I think that it's new and people have to get used to it, but also we have improvements to make, right? There are things that we can do to make it so that, you know, perhaps there's a quick bike cycle before the vehicles go, and other ways that we can make some tweaks to make it safe and convenient, because we definitely also want people to want to use this corridor and to use it safely. And so I think that those tweaks will still happen, and we can refine those, but as you said, it certainly services that safety aspect. So you really worked to bring, you took the, you know, student design, and we're going to have another Live Move person come on here in a bit to talk about what the students did to sort of bring this idea to the city. But, you know, this is something that had been talked about since the 70s, connecting campus and downtown. What did you do in the planning process to bring this to the stage where Brian could work on the design, and, you know, the construction team could actually build it? What were the pieces of the planning that you think were important and interesting and exciting?
So one of the major things that we did was we engaged the community in a conversation, because it had been a long-term plan for a while, but we simply hadn't gotten basically approval. There hasn't been this zeitgeist to, you know, make this thing happen. I think what the University of Oregon students did is said, hey, there's actually a lot of support for this. So once we knew that we had that support on campus, we went out and tested it with the community. And what we learned from the community was actually a lot of people were excited about it. And so what we had to do from there is go door to door. We went to every business and some of the homes along the corridor and sort of talk through what this would mean. It did mean some parking removal. It meant a removal of a travel lane. And so we talked with Peace Health Hospital over by the university about that. They do have an emergency care, so emergency service vehicles are important for that. And that's one of the reasons that our barrier is permeable. So in other words, an ambulance could just drive over that. So we were started thinking about what the design interventions might be to make this an all ages and abilities facility. We figured out what the curb width was. We figured out where parking utilization was strongest and tried to maintain those spaces. And then we tried to figure out what would need to happen at the intersections. And I think what you're going to see is a result of a priority for safety and for connectivity. In other words, what we heard from the community is we need to connect campus to downtown in both directions. We've done that. We need to make sure that those intersections where conflicts are happening, where potential crashes could occur, are solved. And the existing configuration, though sometimes annoying for folks who want to be able to fly through the corridor, if you do follow the signals, it will be safer because we eliminate those conflicts. Now, there's still some tweaking that we're going to do, and like all signals in the entire city, they are a work in progress and continue to be. And we're going to try to make the user experience a little bit better. There's no point in having a unique signal if nobody's going to comply with a red signal. And so we know that some of that user experience has to be integrated into the signal timing. Otherwise, it isn't going to work the way that we expected it to. But we did surveys as well, getting back to your question. So we asked the community abroad, what would you like to see in this area? And I think Mark Schlossberg talked about it earlier. There were a few communities in the nation that were starting to do protected bikeways in an urban environment. I think, Shane, I heard you mention East Amazon earlier too. So that's more, it's not really an urban environment, it's more suburban in that it was next to a linear park and there weren't a lot of driveways or alleys or anything that were gonna interrupt the bikeway. This is completely different than that. So what we had to do was try to figure out how to manage what was going to happen. Sorry, I've got a truck brigade going by right now. It's that time of day for trucks. So yeah, what we're trying to do is figure out what's going to be best for the community when infrastructure matches that. The other complication to this that you should know in the background is that we used federal funding for this. And so there are some innovations that some cities are doing that we could not do because they haven't been approved by the federal government yet. So since we're using their funding, we have to use their design guidelines. And so we weren't able to be as innovative as we wanted to. But this corridor isn't done. So we do plan on coming back and making the signals and signage more clear so that folks know how the signals are actuated. We're talking about putting in some lean bars. Like in Copenhagen, where if you go up to a signal, you can just kind of lean on this bar instead of putting your foot down. That'll allow you to accelerate away from that intersection faster on a green, and it's just more comfortable. And we're going to be doing some more messaging along the corridor as well. And as I mentioned, the signals themselves are going to get some communications devices, which should improve things. There's no timeline on that. We're working to get those installed as soon as we can, and then to reevaluate the timing.
Great, and then also just talking about things that are still to come. Mark was talking a little bit about the David Miner Memorial. You want to give a quick little blurb about what might be coming on that front?
Yeah, so the Miner family generously donated $150,000. Part of that is going to go into the David Miner Memorial Plaza at 13th and Willamette. It's going to be an entirely new space that's going to be dedicated to David Miner's life and to safety messaging for all travelers on the 13th Avenue corridor. We're also looking at installing those lean rails that I just talked about and doing some branding throughout the corridor as well. So they would really like that money to be used for safety messaging so that people are complying with signals and so that drivers are aware of what's supposed to happen, people biking know what's supposed to happen, and pedestrians as well. So there's more to come. We did not want to mix that money with the federal money because we don't think the federal government should be telling us what our messaging should be. And so early in 2021, we plan on developing a plan and then hopefully installing the infrastructure that will help brand this space and then be able to build that plaza. So that is coming. Again, not an uncertain timeline, but it won't happen before January 2021. And I think that'll really be unique in the country. I haven't seen a lot of places that have lean rails installed yet. And so that'll be pretty cool. I'm very excited about that.
That's great. So I want to transition here in a little bit to back to some of the history piece and bring on a move student. But I wanted to check in with you on one other piece, and that is if you have anything else about this corridor and how it fits into the system of the bikeways. You talked about East Amazon and sort of just the transportation system plan, grand vision of this corridor, and then other pieces that might be coming as well.
I talked about that a little bit when I first sat down, but we do have a 20-year plan focused on transportation. One of the things that 20-year plan talks about is tripling our mode share for active modes. So how do we get 3 times the amount of people who use bikes for regular transportation out riding bikes every day? And part of that is building infrastructure that they feel comfortable with. In other words, they don't have to kind of determine what their route is going to be, what's going to feel safe. They know and feel confident that they can get on a bike and travel where they want to go from their origin all the way to their destination. So we have a variety of different tools in our toolbox to be able to do that. A protected bike lane is one of those tools. Neighborhood greenways, otherwise known as a bicycle boulevard, are another way to do that. And that is tuning local streets so that they feel a little bit safer to bike on. And that has to do with making sure that those crossings of major streets are more comfortable. We do have a project coming up in Northeast Eugene next year that's going to really explore what the capability of a neighborhood greenway is. We're also looking at, right-sizing our existing bike lanes. When we built this system in the 1970s, we shoehorned in a lot of stuff. And that was great because it built the system, but it didn't necessarily make the safest and most comfortable system. And so by right-sizing bike lanes, that means that we're doing things like removing parking or removing a travel lane where we have excess capacity and widening things out. So before we get to a protected bike lane, it's very possible that we will end up with a buffered bike lane. And then that gives us the space in the future to provide a physical separation in that space. And so all of this is, it takes a while to get to it. But we do have a network established downtown. 8th Avenue is going to have protected bike lanes. We're going to try to get that project done next year. So that's going to connect Mill Street, which you might think of as Coburg Road, all the way to Lincoln Street with protected bike lanes. And then probably 2 years from now, we've got money from the government, federal government, to do protected bike lanes on Lincoln Street. And so very much like 13th Avenue, that ends at Lincoln now, you can think of that connecting right around the corner on Lincoln and then heading into downtown. That'll provide additional connectivity in our system, and hopefully, again, all ages and abilities. And so folks don't really have to think about what kind of trip they're making and can just get on the bike and start riding. It also allows us to use more micromobility. So if e-scooters come here, and as you start thinking about bike share and other mobility devices, what sort of infrastructure would support that best? And it tends to be something that looks like a shared use path, and that's what a protected bike lane does, especially if it's a 2-way protected bike lane, because it provides the same level of service as a shared use path and does physically separate people driving from people on a micromobility device. So we've got a lot of plans in the works. Over the next few years, I think you're going to be seeing more of this happen. It's an exciting time, and give us some time on 13th, because we know that there's a lot of signals in the corridor, and we are working at making sure that the timing works for everyone and that we get increased compliance along the way. But come out and use it. It's fantastic. Shane said he's been out here with his family. I have seen some families out using it, and I don't think that they were here before we built the protected bike lane. So that was the whole point of this.
Yeah, thanks so much, Reid. It definitely is. I think that it's, I wouldn't have ridden down 13th with my kids before, and now it definitely feels safe and comfortable to do that. Thanks for all of your work on this and everything that you put into it and continue to do on this project, and especially on all the projects coming ahead. It's really exciting to think about how this system is really growing and connecting.
Yep. Thanks, Shane. Yeah, come out and ride it. It's fun.
Great. All right. Well, let me. Perfect. And now, real quick, I want to just throw up this great old clip. On the City of Eugene History website, we have some really fun history pieces based off of some videos that were filmed back in the 70s about biking in Eugene and making connections. And I wanted to show this really quick clip about connecting campus to downtown. And then we'll bring on another couple guests with us. So let me try to bring this up here. 1 second. Oh, here we go. Oh, I don't know if I got the audio here. 1 second. Let me pull this back off. There we go. That's better. Yeah.
At this west entrance to the university campus, during a regular class day, over 400 bicycles each hour went through this closed to cars intersection. On the street.
Oh no. Uh-oh. Oh no, my battery is running low.
Leading to this intersection, a plan needs to be made to better accommodate bicycles. Perhaps there could be a bicycle corridor. It could link the campus with the downtown area. It would lessen bike riding hazards and feelings of paranoia for both car drivers and bike riders alike. For the non-bicycle rider, let me raise this question. Is a car the best and quickest way to move yourself from the university to the downtown mall? Consider this rapid transit alternative.
All right, this part's a little silly. But I think that just really highlights the, how long we've been talking about this. It was a 1972 film talking about connecting campus to downtown. And I think that a lot of that vision happened with the Riverfront Bikeway, the Ruth Bascom Riverfront Bike Path, and a lot of really innovative things in the 70s happened to create the bikeways around Eugene. And I think that, the number of bike lanes and the off-street path system that we've built up happened because of a lot of work in the 70s. And that work continued on into the 80s and kind of slowed down a little bit in the 90s. Okay, and we're back. Apologies for the minor technical difficulty. Let me get us adjusted here. Great. All right. Changed computers, but lost my links. So hopefully this will work for a bit. So we were talking a little bit about the history and looking at the film from the 70s, and then talking a little bit earlier with Mark Schlossberg about the project that Live Move did here to help facilitate the creation of this 13th Avenue Bikeway. And I wanted to bring on someone who worked on that project early on. So I'm going to bring Nick on here. Welcome, Nick. And why don't you give us a little introduction of yourself and how you're connected with this project. Oh, sorry.
Hey, good morning, Shane. My name is Nick Meltzer, and currently I'm the Transportation Programs Manager for the Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments, which is located up in the Albany-Corvallis area. And I was one of the students who worked on the project back in 2013 and 2014 as a grad student.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what did Live Move do to create that report that came out of this, and what was it like being a student working on this project?
Yeah, I think it started as students. We lived along 13th, and so we were obviously traveling back and forth to campus every day. And it was easy for us to get into campus, but then when it came time to go home at the end of the day, you had to do kind of this weird dog leg on the 12th and then cross a bunch of high traffic streets and high speed streets. But then at the same time, we saw a lot of folks were just kind of biking on the sidewalk because that was the kind of most natural thing to do on a bike. And so we basically just saw this problem. And so we kind of set about, as eager young grad students, we set about trying to come up with a solution to fix it. And so we started with that and then kind of took it into an analysis stage.
And what were some of the things you did for the analysis stage?
Yeah, so we did traffic counts at each intersection because we kind of broadly wanted to know how many cars were traveling through the corridor versus how many people. And so at each intersection from campus all the way out to Willamette, west to Willamette, we did intersection counts to track the number of cars, the number of people walking, and the number of people on bikes. And what we found was as the closer you got to campus, there's actually more people traveling along 13th on a bicycle than in a car. And so that kind of reinforced the need for us. And then from there, we did a parking utilization study. So, kind of the biggest question for us was we see the need for a two-way cycle track here, but what side of the street should it go on? And so we did parking utilization counts to figure out how often cars were parking there and if there was a better side of the street to put the two-way bikeway on.
Awesome. Apologies for the background noise. I guess that's what happens when you do a live stream out on the street. So what do you think about how the 13th Avenue Bikeway has turned out?
I think it's great. I think, I wrote it before it was officially open, so, don't tell anyone, but riding it into campus feels even better than it did before. Before there was a bike lane with no protection, and you just feel so much safer on the facility now. And it's so much more pleasant to bike with someone because they can almost bike next to you, except for the occasional pylons. And then I think coming out of campus, it just feels so natural. It feels, as though the facility should have always been there and that it's so intuitive for people who don't think and talk about bikes all the time. So I think everyone from Live Move is just super pleased with how it came out.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely that feeling of, getting to Hilliard, where usually before you had to do that funny jog at Hilliard to get onto 12th and then ride 12th, with all those stop signs along the way. It was just clunky. And now it just has this real natural feel because as Live Move saw, people were already riding onto the sidewalk and riding against traffic, and this just has that natural feel to it, and like a bikeway should be, and so it feels natural, and now it is, so it's great to see that happen.
Yeah, and I think it took a while to get there too. I remember I just had a flashback to some of the public meetings that happened once the city took up the project, and the response, or one of the original responses from the city was, well, there's 12th and there's 11th. And I think it was actually you who stood up and said, well, I don't feel safe biking on those streets with my kids. And even if there's a gap in traffic from the cross streets along 12th, that, it's hard to know how fast cars are traveling. So I think this facility is so much safer, and it's just so much more pleasant.
Yeah, it's a bit about that comfort level too, right? Like, yes, I could ride 12th, and every place there's a spot to cross that there's I could just wait for a gap in traffic and you can do it. But is that going to get the people who are interested but concerned to ride, right? And we know that there's that 60% of the population who want to ride more but don't really feel comfortable, and this is the kind of facility that really invites that. And I think that that's one of the big changes, is that experienced cyclists are riding this now, and they're like, oh, but I have to wait so long at the lights. And yeah, we'll work on improving that, but it's also like, yes, it's gonna feel different because it is different, and I think it's gonna draw the kind of people who aren't riding now be more interested in that, because it feels that much more safe and comfortable. So, what out of curiosity, what are some of the projects that you're working on now? Like, how did the work with Live Move and university lead into what you're working on now, if at all?
Yeah, well, I think what we learned in grad school at Live Move is that you can just pitch an idea out into the kind of the general atmosphere, and if it's a good enough idea, it'll get enough traction, regardless of whether there's broad support from the public or private side. And so something I worked on recently was a road diet in Corvallis, and they had never done a road diet before. I'd done some work on the one in Eugene, and I think for me the idea of just we're adjusting for the sun, but I think just the idea of you can put, I don't know if it's going to work. You can throw an idea out there, and if it's a good enough idea, then trusting the process to make sure that it'll get traction eventually, one way or the other. Yeah. I think I would say the other thing is encouraging current grad students that we maybe started doing it out of fun or out of a way to learn more about what we were studying, but in the end, the Minor family kind of recognized our vision, and we're just so grateful to them that, they essentially validated how good our idea was. So that was really exciting.
Cool. Can I have you riff on something while I want to look up a video from another Live Move student that was sent in. So I'm going to look.
Sure.
I'm going to look that up real quick. So I'll let you riff on something else about the Bikeway that you feel excited or interested about.
Oh, let's see. I think we wrote it. So again, we wrote it before it was officially open late one evening, and it's so intuitive. And to me, a facility that's designed really well is intuitive for people that are using it. And so we biked from the end of it at Lincoln and 13th all the way to campus, and then turned around, went back. And it wasn't officially open, but we saw people with skateboards in it. We saw college students on Peace Health bikes that just instantly knew how to use it because it was just there. And so for us, or I guess for me, seeing a facility that is so easily used by other people who aren't experts in biking is a resounding success of how well the facility is designed. Okay. Shane told me I need to keep talking. So I think I've contrasted it to the city installed the two-way cycle track out on West Amazon, which I think was one of the newer facilities for the city. And noticing the difference in this one. This one's a little bit wider, which I like. I mentioned this before, but you can almost ride next to someone, which is my favorite thing to do on bike lanes. But those pylons get in the way. So maybe we can talk about that in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. When I was riding with my kids, of course, I'm riding next to one of my kids, and the other two are riding behind me next to each other. And at those pylons, I'm like moving over onto the other side, and one of my kids in the back goes, "Hey, you're riding in the wrong lane." Like, yeah, I know. So checked by the kiddos. But yeah, I think that's the thing, is that yes, there is another lane, and you can ride in that lane and just be observant of the other people coming. And when other people come, there's enough room to ride side by side. It gets a little tight, and so if there's two groups of two people riding, it can be a little tight. It can happen. It's just like it's a shared use path width, and you just have to make those adjustments. And that's the thing about biking, and one of the great things I love about it is that you have that human connection with the people that you're traveling with, right? Like when we're in our cars, you don't have that eye contact and you don't have that connection to people, but when you're biking, you do. And so if there are other people coming, we negotiate, right? And I think that's one of the great things about these two-way bikeways, is that, yeah, there's some complications around traffic signals and transitions, but I feel like Eugene really set the groundwork for creating a bikeway system built around the shared use path network. And for me, these two-way protected bikeways that we've started to put in really just expand that bikeway network into the city and really create that same kind of feel into our urban bikeway network. And I think that's pretty cool. Thanks for stalling. I wanted to bring this little video up from another Live Move student who has gone on, and if people haven't seen, he's got a YouTube channel and Vimeo channel called Beautiful City. Have you seen his videos? Yeah. They're really fun. So he sent a little message that I wanted to play here real quick. Oh, I think I might have forgotten to get the audio on, so apologies as I switch this back over and add the audio in. The all-important audio. Okay, here we go.
Former Live Move by Design 13th Street project manager and current assistant planner of city and regional planning here at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And first of all, I just want to express how excited I am that this project is actually getting built. Back then, we knew it was a good idea, but we didn't know if it would actually happen. So I'm so excited. And the next time in Eugene, I will absolutely have to get on a bike and try it out for myself. And I'm so jealous of all of you that get to do it right now. So this project is one of those projects that will just stick with me through my entire career. And I consider it one of my major accomplishments so far. When I was applying for this job, I included it in my presentation of my work, again, because I thought it was such a cool project. And it took me by surprise, but after my presentation, students were coming up to me asking me how we did the project. How do we pick the project? Did we just do it ourselves? And I said, yeah, we just went out and did it. So obviously this is a unique project, a unique program that I hope Live Move continues on into the future. And my advice to those of you who are considering, how to choose a new project, what we did was we just looked for sort of obvious problems with the current bike infrastructure system. We noticed that people were biking the wrong way down 13th Street. And we also wanted to bike the wrong way down 13th Street. It's an obvious two-way cycle track location. So we went out, we did all of our research, and we produced a plan and a presentation that we delivered to the city. And, the next thing we know, years later, it turned into a built project. And I think that's something that anyone can do anywhere. I think I hope that the students here at Cal Poly do what we did in Oregon. I know that Live Move can continue on doing projects like this into the future. So again, so excited to hear that this project is finally built. I'm envious of all of you who get to ride on it, and I hope to join you soon.
Excellent. So that was really great to see. I was just talking with Mark Schlossberg, who says that he's now a professor at Cal Poly, and so excited to see that work happening in other communities. Oops. Just change this here. All right, now we can see Nick a little bit better. You can't see the bikeway on your side, but you still see it on mine. And you can see the back of 16 Tons, who's helping us out today. We're excited to be here with 16 Tons and at Moke's, their coffee shop, having a little coffee outside. And I'm also excited that we have another guest who's going to join us. And I'm just going to keep you on here, Nick, and bring on our other guest into the studio, Emma.
Hello.
Welcome.
Cheers.
Good morning. You got your coffee inside?
Yep. It's a little warmer today.
Yeah, a little bit warmer. Well, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how you're connected to the 13th Avenue Bikeway?
Yeah, so I'm Emma Newman, currently the Senior Transportation Planner with the City of Springfield. But my interest in transportation planning really originated with my work with LiveMove when I was a university student. Back in 2012, started researching separated bike facilities all across the U.S., and they were pretty new and exciting at that. Been reconfigured, and then there was this vision for expanding more robust bike facilities throughout the city. And we saw people riding the wrong way down 13th. I remember some of my observation times seeing people skateboarding, running, biking, any form of human-powered transportation the wrong way in a car travel lane, and that was pretty terrifying to see. So it's wonderful to see a dedicated facility that's fit for that need for campus to downtown foot and bike traffic that just works so much better.
Yeah, it does. And I'm curious, if you can share a little bit of how that work that you did there transitioned and influenced the work that you moved on to and you're doing now.
Yeah, so it really was the foundation of everything that I've done since in transportation work. Seeing that if we build spaces that accommodate people using active transportation, then they will be used, and people have opportunities to not only benefit on the individual level as far as health and fitness goes, but it provides an opportunity to bump into people we know in the community, pull off to the side of the street and say hi to someone. And especially in these current times, that need for human connection is even more important. So building cities where people can spontaneously connect and have a conversation, share a cup of coffee, what have you. And then since then, I've been involved in Safe Routes to School work. Thankfully got to work with Eugene in that arena for a while. And then that led to partnering with the City of Springfield staff to try to build more infrastructure that is conducive to walking and biking. And then that led to my current work with the city doing all sorts of transportation planning related work, from transit to walking, biking, maintaining our streets, etc.
Any protected bikeways on the frontier for Springfield or other bike infrastructure improvements? I know that there's some neighborhood greenways or bike boulevard work that was happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of great potential. Focusing right now on getting some more of our off-street path network built, because it's one thing to have a protected bikeway on a street system, but if you can have a fully separated path, that's even more comfortable for people to ride on. We do have a couple ideas in the works, and since I started working at the city, the two-way bikeway up in Gateway Mall was constructed, and we've also buffered some bike lanes, such as on Olympic Street, and made some great progress on the Virginia Daisy Bikeway in mid-Springfield.
Cool. Well, I just wanted to, say thanks to both you and Nick and all the students that were students who were involved with this project, because it was really inspiring to see and sort of see how not only that it developed this bikeway and really helped to push it into the conversation and creation, but then also just to see where that went for you as individuals too, and to have you all continue to be engaged in active transportation in really exciting ways. So thanks for that work and your continued work.
Yeah, I think some of the most beneficial parts are the connections we made. I mean, I get to work with Nick professionally on statewide issues, which is really exciting to affect policy on the statewide scale and even some national efforts as well.
Yeah, and Emma didn't mention this, but I gave her a shout out via text for her wayfinding work in Springfield. The wayfinding on the pass is excellent to get from one pass system to another. So the quieter parts of bike infrastructure.
Oh, that's a great point. That's an important piece. That was something that for this 13th Avenue project was a big piece of it too, was adding that wayfinding and connecting those systems and letting people know, hey, there is a good bikeway here. Yeah. Great. Well, any last words before we bring on our final guest and wrap up our live stream here?
I would just say we're so, we had a crazy idea as grad students, and then we're just so grateful to the Miner family for kind of sharing our vision and kind of pushing it into the more public realm for us.
Yeah, it's really fulfilling to see something go from a project that's not even identified as a need or a planned project in the plan to being adopted into the plan, being prioritized by the community, and seeing the funding line up to actually go into design and construction. And as of this last weekend, be able to actually ride on the new facility.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm excited to see the work continue you're doing.
Thanks, Shane.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Emma. Great. All right. So we are in our final minutes here of our Shift Lanes 13th Avenue Bikeway Celebration Coffee Outside event, where we're just live streaming along the 13th Avenue Bikeway. We have a lot of really great events planned as part of the Shift Lanes celebration, and I wanted to bring back on our original guest to talk a little bit more about that celebration and sort of what's involved in it. And so I wanted to welcome Cass back in here in just a second, and I'll bring up some information about that as she's talking about the celebration and sort of what's happened so far, but then also what's planned and some exciting things that you can do to get engaged and involved and come out and have fun and enjoy the bikeway and support the businesses. That's definitely an important part of this bikeway construction and sort of post-construction, is supporting those businesses post-COVID and into this recovery from that. It's really important to get out and support those local businesses, and I think that coming out and riding the bikeway and stopping for a coffee or picking up some records or just the diversity of businesses along here is really great. And so Cass can talk a little bit about that. So welcome, Cass.
Hi, Shane.
Hey there. So will you fill us in a little bit about the celebration and what's happened and what's coming up?
Yeah. So, well, as you were just talking about the businesses along the route, one of the best things is that you can pop right off the bikeway to all kinds of restaurants and shops. There's so much going on along 13. And a bunch of those businesses have stepped forward with discounts for folks on bikes. So up through Friday, you're welcome to stop by a whole list of businesses. They're all on hugefund.org. And you can get discounts of various kinds. So, for example, here at Moke's and at 16 Tons, where we are right nearby here, they've got discounts. And so you can just pull off the bikeway and lock up your bike and enjoy a beer, or the great breakfast tacos they have here at Moke's. Also at Falling Sky and Clay 52 and so many others. So you want to be sure to hit those up this week. I know that I have gotten some great discounts. And in addition to the businesses, of course, we've got lots of physically distanced group rides that are happening. We've had a bunch of them so far. Some really big ones on Saturday for the folks who are out for the Ride for Justice and Climate Revolutions rides that went right down the Bikeway. Definitely over 100 people with police escort. It was just huge and a lot of fun. So we've got some more of those coming up. Looks like Shane is bringing up the website. If you go to hugefun.org and click through to Shift Lanes, it'll take you to this page, which has all of the details about the Bikeway celebration called Shift Lanes 13th Avenue. And on there, you can find all kinds of info about the group rides. As I was just getting into, ride and seat deals. Those are all those discounts at restaurants and shops that I was talking about. There's also some art. We had a film fest this weekend. Just lots of good stuff. So I do want to talk about those rides. We have got, let's see, on Wednesday we have a couple of rides coming up with Best and Gears. So Better Eugene Springfield Transportation and Gears, which is a local Eugene area riders. They'll both be featuring the Bikeway on those rides. And then also on Friday, we've got a dispersed ride with AARP. And a dispersed ride really just means that it is a day on the Bikeway or a few hours in the case of critical mass this weekend, where we've got folks from a particular group who are spending time on the Bikeway, riding up and down, checking it out, enjoying those discounts I mentioned, and making sure that there's stops along the way. So we've got an AARP dispersed ride all day on Friday. And then Friday evening, we've got a costumed all-electric bike ride with Electric Avenue. If you haven't been down to their brand new shop on Broadway, definitely worth checking out. Super cool to have an all-electric shop in our town, and they're doing a themed ride on Friday, so that should definitely be fun. And let's see, more things that are going on. Actually, on Friday night, Eugene Printmakers is a collective of artists that do prints. And in particular, Shane's bringing up that image there. In particular, they're doing prints of manhole covers right now, of manhole covers from around the city, but they're especially going to feature some manhole covers from 13th Avenue, which is really cool. They've got coasters, like commemorative coasters for the Bikeway. They'll be doing that outside of Falling Sky from 4 to 7 p.m. on Friday. So that should be so fun. You can get printed shirts and handkerchiefs, which should be great. But all the cost for the prints that you might pay for a t-shirt or a handkerchief goes to support the arts here in Eugene. So also a worthy cause. And then we got one more thing. We've got another live stream event on Wednesday night. The City of Eugene and the City of Springfield are partnering with Live Move, that student group that you all just heard about not too long ago on the show, who first envisioned the Bikeway, and they are hosting Tamika Butler, who is an expert on the intersection between transportation and racism. And she is going to be talking all about the history of the connection between those two topics and how we can move forward as folks who support walking and biking in our community. So you'll definitely want to check that out. You'll need to get a ticket for that. So check out that Shift Lanes website to sign up for that and get a ticket. Is there anything I'm missing, Shane?
I think we've also got a couple other live stream events coming up with the drop by the shop with Peace Health Rides. So I'm going to be helping at the shop there, and the shop folks who are our fleet team are going to answer any questions you might have about bike mechanics or general bike safety, burritos, where the best spot is in town to pick up a Peace Health Rides and lunch, or any kind of questions you have. Call into the live stream, drop by the shop, and you can see the inner workings of how Peace Health Rides team keeps the bikes in good working order and rebalanced. They'll show off some of their cool parts of their shop and answer any questions that people have. So join us for that one, and then let's see what else we had on there. Let me bring you back on here. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that should be great. The drop by the shop. I'm looking forward to popping in and getting some questions answered by the folks at the shop.
Oh, maybe talk a little bit about the I Spy. That was another fun little.
Absolutely, yeah. So for families along the Bikeway, which we're starting to see more of, it's just fantastic. There is on the Shift Lanes page an I Spy game for you and your littles. You can just check out, all the different animals. You can spy all the different animals along the route. Some that are on murals, some that are sculptural, different things like that. You can learn about the Bikeway lights together, about the ghost bike that is at 13th and Willamette. So there's lots of things to learn with your littles, and take them on the Bikeway, have them check it out, and hope you enjoy it. It's a safe ride for everybody.
Awesome, thanks. And I just wanted to bring this one up one more time. The ride and seek deals as you're out playing I Spy or just riding the corridor. Stop by any of these businesses. There's a lot of great businesses along the corridor to check out, but especially these that are offering discounts. Another shout out to Moke's, who is hosting us today, and 16 Tons, providing us this space and Wi-Fi to do this fun live stream event. So thanks to them, and thanks to you, Cass, for getting all of this together for this celebration. I think it's really important that we celebrate these major infrastructure changes and let people know that they're here and that they're open for use. And we encourage them to get out and use them and support those local businesses. So thanks for helping to bring that awareness. And any other pieces to share before we sign off?
Thanks, Shane. No, just go ahead and check out the hugefun.org and the Shift Lanes 13th Avenue, everybody. We've still got stuff going on through Friday. And this has already been such a great week on the Bikeway. And we're going strong for a few more days. So enjoy.
All right, great. Thanks, Cass, and thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you out on the Bikeway.